So here's what we're targeting to help you do more effectively today, to help you inspire and direct your team to greater readiness and effectiveness, to add value to your organization by understanding the needs of your customers, to help you anticipate, create, and actually encourage change, and I'll explain why, to help you spot opportunities for successful strategic alliances, to help you become a more innovative and visionary leader, to also help you, no matter where you reside in your organization, to establish a strategic culture. Also, to identify the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities on your team, to help you keep your team moving forward, and to take risks with confidence. In addition, we'll help you identify the benefits of focusing on strategy, some of the different ways in which we can use vision in our organization. Then there are 4 key factors that are very closely linked, and that would be strategy, objectives, metrics, and performance. And so how to integrate these 4. Next, we'll address some of the new strategic patterns that are evolving in the business world and develop ideas for their application for your organization, and then discover when to use action plans to implement strategy and when a looser system might be more beneficial. I'll give you a little preview on that one. In our experience, although we're always looking forward to hearing about others' experience, in our experience, almost all the time, a more structured action plan will be beneficial. In addition, what we will address is crossing the line to strategic effectiveness, learning what we call the strategic leadership approach. We'll address the connections between vision, having a vision, and being a strategic leader. We'll also help you become a more effective leader, build influence through communication. We'll understand together the role of teams in all the different stages, and then help you manage change with action-oriented skills. So I share with you all an exercise that was first taught to me some 20 years ago by a wonderful person named Chris Holmberg, who at the time, Chris was the director of Cadence Design Systems Corporate University, known as Cadence University. And he was bringing me on at the time as adjunct faculty to provide instruction at a number of the Cadence locations. So in short, Chris said, you know, we have this wonderful exercise. It's only 4 steps, and it's very easy to follow. So I'll walk you through the 4 steps. I have an example loaded here, and then I'll explain some of the contexts where this exercise has been very helpful to also helping inspire my team to greater readiness and effectiveness. So step 1 is we draw a circle, whether it's flip chart page, white space, whiteboard, wherever, draw a circle and ask everyone on your team to offer up some thoughts about what do we all together have in common with each other. And so the example I'm sharing, we conducted recently with a group of managers at a long-term acute care hospital in Las Vegas, Nevada. And what these managers said that we have in common that we all work in healthcare, we are all leaders in our areas, we are all managing somebody, we are all focused on quality care, on establishing relationships, and we all have health issues in our lives. That's step 1. Step 2 is just outside the circle. What I normally do is draw a series of lines to make it look like rays of the sun. And what we do is, for step 2, is we just ask everyone, okay, each of you please offer up just one unique life experience or work experience you have had just compared with everyone else in this room. And so a few of the responses I thought you would enjoy. First on the left, at the very top, we have John B. John B. was the chief operating officer of the last place he worked, the Las Vegas Casino, and he and his wife were married in a drive-through 12 years ago. I laugh every time I see that. Then look, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 people below John B. is Joe H. And Joe H. made a very interesting career choice. He was working as an aircraft mechanic, and he found that both he and many of his colleagues were suffering a lot of injuries on the job and then having to go for physical therapy. So on one of his visits to a local hospital, I should say a healthcare center for some physical therapy, he actually met the woman who was to become his wife. She is a physical therapist. And he said, you know, I'm tired of getting hurt on the job all the time and seeing my colleagues getting hurt on the job all the time. And I really like this woman, you know, who's been giving me physical therapy. So I think I'm going to move into that profession. And so he used to work as an aircraft mechanic. He first transitioned to physical therapy, and then he became the director of occupational therapy at this particular long-term acute care hospital. All right, 2 others I thought you would enjoy. On the right, at the very top, is Sam. Sam is a twin. He also made a very interesting career choice, transition. He was driving a concrete truck, but he found, I guess they drive a lot on very bumpy roads, and he found that he was experiencing a lot of back trouble. And he said, I need to get out of, you know, a job where I'm hurting my back all the time, like someone else with injuries, and move into something that's better. And so he decided to transition from driving a concrete truck to working in healthcare. So another interesting career transition. And just below Sam is Daryl. Daryl used to be stationed at Andrews Air Force Base in Bethesda, Maryland. And while he was there, he saw 2 presidents and their wives. Now, you may start to think, well, how is this information going to help me inspire my team to greater readiness and effectiveness? And I appreciate that. So now let me share steps 3 and 4, which is where we debrief this information with a very simple, straightforward question. Okay, first of all, step 3, inside the circle, all that information you said that we have in common with each other, how can knowing that information help us work together effectively? And so we facilitated this exercise with hundreds, probably thousands of managers over the past 20 years. And here's a summary of what they've said in that first bullet point in the answer to that first question, which is step 3. Again, how can knowing this information inside the circle, what we have in common with each other, help us work together effectively? And these managers have said, knowing what we have in common with each other helps us stay on the same page, aiming toward the same goals, and communicating effectively with each other. And then step 4 is simply a debrief of the information outside the circle. How can knowing all these unique life and work experiences that we all have had, how can knowing that information help us work together effectively? And again, hundreds to thousands of managers have said, knowing the unique talents, skills, and experiences each of us brings to the table helps us understand and appreciate where our complementary skill sets are and how we can continue to help each other toward teaming success and project success. Okay, so again, simple, straightforward, 4-step exercise. Now for the promised contexts. So one of our more experienced people suggested once, after they've been through this exercise, you know, this would be great anytime we bring on a new person, because it would give them a chance to start to know us, and for us to start to know them. And so we started doing that, and it met with very, very positive feedback. So we've continued to do this anytime a new hire comes on. And also, it was suggested by another person that we do this right at the start of each year, just to give us all a fresh start and restart. So we have done that as well. So there are two contexts, two types of situations where we have found this exercise very helpful. And of course, we facilitate this many times as consultants and facilitators in organizations all around the world. Okay, so continuing with this theme of inspiring our team to greater readiness and effectiveness, let's take our first look at Tuckman's 5 stages of team development. There's forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. And I will just say about adjourning that we have found the adjourning phase and stage much more relevant when we talk about project teams. As you can see in the adjourning phase, people are focused on completing tasks, have good feelings about achievements, and what they're looking to us for as leaders is recognition. Okay, so let's continue and start to talk and think about how can we cross the line to strategic effectiveness. And in our experience, perhaps in yours, it starts by first understanding the differences between managing and leading. You see, when we manage, we have direct authority using our positional power as managers. As leaders, we don't have to be managers. We may happen to be managers, but when we're looking to lead, what we do is we guide, influence, and collaborate using our relational power. What we mean by relational power is getting to know our people as individuals, as persons, perhaps as family members. My favorite example of this is a CEO whose first name is Glenn, and he is the CEO of, it's about a 55-person company. And to his credit, what Glenn does every Monday morning, the second he walks in, he walks the perimeter of the building and he just asks anyone and everyone he sees, hey, how was your weekend? And he wants people to tell him what they did. Whether, you know, if they have kids, like their kids playing in any sporting events. What do they do for fun? Were they on vacation? You know, what do they do for enjoyment? In other words, start to get to know them as people, as human beings. When we manage, we maintain. That's part of what we have to do. When we lead, we look to develop others. When we manage, we have a number of administrative responsibilities, whereas when we lead, we focus more on creativity and innovation. When we manage, we focus on our systems and structure. This is, again, part of our job. Our role is to maintain that focus, whereas when we lead, instead of tasks, systems, and structures, we focus more on our relationships with people. When we manage, we rely on control based in large part to our authority and in our role as managers, whereas when we lead, we look to inspire others' trust in us. When we manage, we focus more on near-term goals. What are we looking to do today, this week, this month, this quarter? Whereas when we lead, we focus more on our long-range vision. Where do we see ourselves in 1, 2, or 3 years? When we manage, we ask how we're going to accomplish what we're looking to accomplish, and when. What's the schedule? Maybe for milestones along the way towards achieving our goals. Whereas when we lead, we ask, what are we trying to accomplish? So what are our goals and why? What is the purpose of the goal or goals that we have? When we manage, we have to focus on the bottom line. We all have budgets to manage, whereas when we lead, we focus more on the horizon. What's up ahead? When we manage, we have to accept the status quo. Sometimes it can be very, very difficult, but we sometimes in managers are asked to conduct what we like to call a reality check. And if we're going to conduct a reality check, we have to focus together with people on the status quo. Where are we right now? Whereas when we lead, we look to challenge the status quo. So you see, when we engage in problem solving, we both manage and lead, because the first step in solving a problem is gaining a shared understanding of both where we are now, the status quo, and where are we trying to get to? What's our goal? When we manage, we do things right. We're expected to lead by example, do things precisely according to standard operating procedures. This is just part of our job as managers, whereas when we lead, we focus more on doing the right things. When we manage, we focus on operational issues and solving problems, whereas when we lead, we focus more on what's our vision, what can we do to align goals, what are individual team members' motivation above and beyond a paycheck, and then what can we do to inspire others? All right. So continuing with this theme of adding value to our organization, now we're talking about understanding the needs of our customers. You see, just a moment ago, we were talking about crossing the line to strategic effectiveness, and now we're building on that, because what we're starting to do here is to align two sets of two goals. So first, on the left, part of our job as managers is to make sure that all of our department goals, strategic goals, mission, vision, and values are all aligned with our organizational goals. Whereas on the right, our individual team members, they're the ones who usually have much more regular and daily contact with customers than we do. So we say to our team members, our customers have needs and wants, and the way to discover those are to ask questions and then, of course, listen carefully, because our customers also want us to listen to us. Our customers are also looking for us to provide value. And so part of what we have to do, and we teach our team members to do, is to ask clarifying questions and make confirming statements, so we are on the same page with our customers when it comes to understanding the value they are looking for from us. And then also, our customers are looking for and expecting 100% satisfaction, and they love it when we surprise them and delight them with added value. And how do we facilitate both 100% customer satisfaction and provide added value? Well, we under-promise and over-deliver. And this, we hope, gets our individual team members to identifying goals which are their customers' goals, and which, in order for them to be effective, our individual team members, they have to make their goals simpatico or fully aligned with our customers' goals. So now we have two sets of two goals that are aligned. Now we continue the process. We're back to crossing the line to strategic effectiveness. So we know already on the left side that our strategic goals, mission, vision, and values are fully aligned with our organizational strategic goals, mission, vision, and values. Good. Now on the right, part of what we have to do both as managers and as leaders is to ensure and teach, when and where appropriate, our individual team members have the sufficient level of knowledge in order to ask the best questions that will most clearly and fully identify customers' needs and wants. We teach our individuals to develop the skills, most especially active listening skills, because our customers want us to listen to them. We also teach to individuals' abilities. How well do they not only listen, but then how effectively can they deliver on what they've heard? How effectively do they ask questions, under-promise and over-deliver, facilitating, helping customers to understand what value it is that we provide. And then, of course, when it comes to 100% customer satisfaction and even surprising and delighting our customers with added value, well, we ensure that our individual team members have the sufficient level of competency to communicate to customers their understanding of what will it take to ensure that individual customer's 100% satisfaction. And also, we perhaps do some teaching ourselves and or send our individual team members to classes and courses and workshops that support their professional development, which helps them to more effectively convey to customers the added value that we're looking to provide. So you see, this is where we're taking our aligning of goals and making everything much more strategic. You know, the strategic goals are already fully aligned on the left side between our department and our organization. The other connection to be made, though, is to ensure that our individual team members understand our organization and department goals, fine, we've taken care of the left side, and also to utilize their knowledge, skills, abilities, and competencies, and everything they've learned in classes, courses, workshops to facilitate satisfying customers and providing them with not just value, but added value. So we have longer-term relationships with them. You see, this is all about aligning these 4 sets of strategic goals. All right. So there we go. So now when we talk about learning the strategic leadership approach, what we're talking about here are 2 things. First, understanding each of these qualities and behaviors which make one an effective leader, and therefore the specific action steps that we need to take in order to realize our maximum potential when it comes to all of these leadership skills and behaviors. So as leaders, we look to guide, influence, and collaborate using our relational power. Remember, this is about getting to know our people, who they are, their family, their hobbies, what they do for enjoyment, and what motivates them above and beyond a paycheck. As leaders, we look to develop other people, and we help develop other people by facilitating to their individual professional development plans, to teaching people, and to coaching them. We'll get into coaching a little bit more in just a moment. When we lead, we look to innovate. And we innovate by fostering creativity and facilitating innovation discussions. My favorite example of this was Brian Bogosian, who was my manager at a company called U.S. Telecenters, which then became a part of Sprint. And what Brian did with all of us managers once a month, he taught us well. Once a month on a Thursday afternoon, I think it was usually for about 2 hours, he would bring us all together and say, okay, let's review all our products and services. Let's review all the markets where we are present with our business. And let's discuss together what we can do to make our products and services even better and to perhaps penetrate the markets we're in, gain a greater market share in markets where we're already present, and maybe even enter a new market or 2. He was and continues to be, my understanding is, an outstanding manager. When we lead, we look to focus on relationships with people. And we focus on relationships with people by getting to know them, who they are, their family, what their hobbies are, what they do for enjoyment, and what motivates them above and beyond a paycheck. So you see the close relationship between guiding, influencing, and collaborating using relational power and focusing on relationships with people. Relational power is about getting to know people. As leaders, we look to inspire trust. And we inspire trust and earn people's trust by being an approachable resource for confidential help and trusting others. Let's pause together for just a moment on this phrase, being an approachable resource for confidential help. Everyone, use this as you see fit. For us, that is our definition of what makes someone an effective coach. And here's what we mean. We mean keeping the door open whenever possible. When the door is closed, giving people an outlet. I first learned this from a manager named Kathy Billifer when she was at Sun Microsystems. Kathy would post her schedule on her door every day. And so if her door was closed for any reason and you wanted to talk with her, all you had to do was write your name on her schedule. And if she was returning or when she was returning or opening her door, she would see it. If she was out of the office, she would call into her executive assistant and ask that person to read the names off the schedule who'd written their names down. So what I found especially impressive about that is Kathy was conveying to people, look, I want to be approachable and I want to get together with you anytime you are feeling an urge or a need to speak with me. So I'm promising you a response of no later than the same day. So before I finish each day, I call in to my executive assistant, check and see who's written their name down, and get back to them. So continuing with this thought, though, about being an approachable resource for confidential help, part of being an effective manager, and frankly, part of being an effective strategic leader is being an effective coach. So anyone who reports to me knows, first of all, they can approach me anytime, wanting to have a discussion. And we have a very simple and straightforward agreement, which is this. As long as neither of us are discussing anyone doing anything illegal, everything we say behind a closed door stays in that room. Whether it's my office, your office, or a conference room, doesn't matter. It stays behind that door. And this way, people understand they can come to me, they can come to any of our managers anytime, and they will receive support and confidential help. That information never leaves that room. Otherwise, we would immediately ask that manager to leave. Because if an individual team member cannot trust you to keep a confidence, pardon me, you have what we consider a broken relationship, a broken working relationship. Okay, next, as leaders, we look to focus on long-range vision. And we focus on long-range vision by understanding what our executives' long-range vision is and share this with our team. As leaders, we ask what and why. What are we trying to accomplish and why? And the first question we ask in this vein is, what is our goal? And align our goal with both our organization and our customers. This is how we act and lead strategically. As leaders, we look to focus on the horizon. And to focus on the horizon, we ask, what are our annual goals? What are the key projects we're working on? What's going on in the marketplace right now? What are we doing? What are our competitors doing? As leaders, we look to challenge the status quo. And we draw off the inspiration of Peter Drucker. There's a name I would encourage you, if you're not already familiar with it, to write down, so I will spell it for you. Peter, and his last name is spelled Drucker. That's D as in David, R as in Robert, U as in umbrella, C as in Charles, K as in kangaroo, E-R. Peter Drucker. Right after we're finished today, if you're not already familiar with him, Google him, Wikipedia him, whatever you like. You will see he wrote in his life many, many outstanding, authoritative works on both management and leadership. And I vigorously encourage you to read The Effective Executive and Lessons in Leadership for starters, because Drucker, brilliant person, and also a lifelong practicing management consultant. My favorite quote of Peter Drucker is represented here. He once said, if people spend as much time focusing on their strengths and trying to repeat and build on them as they do beating themselves up over their failures and weaknesses, they'd be much better off as human beings. And I agree with him 100%. Both are important. It is just as important to understand what we do well and keep trying to repeat those good behaviors, just as it is important to understand where we fall short and therefore what corrective action we can take to try to overcome that shortcoming. Both are important. Drucker was absolutely right in my view. Next, as leaders, we look to do the right things. And to do the right things, we act with purpose and focus in a way which is consistent with our values. And finally, as leaders, we look to focus on vision, alignment, motivation, and inspiration. By the way, those are our action steps. So we focus on our leader's vision, the vision statement of where we work, our vision, on aligning goals, on understanding what motivates each and every one of our individual team members, and the fourth, and to inspire people. Forgive me, I was forgetting for a moment. So what steps we can take to inspire others. This is part of what people are looking to from us as leaders. Okay, so now continuing with becoming a strategic leader, an important aspect of that is getting to know ourselves better and empowering ourselves, just as it is getting to know our team members better and looking to lead them effectively. So Dr. John Guyer was the creator of an instrument called the DISC profile, which I'll explain in just a moment if you're not familiar with it. And Dr. Guyer once wrote that someone who knows you better than you know them can control you. He also wrote that someone who knows you better than you know yourself can enslave you. Continuing, Dr. Guyer made these suggestions when it comes to successful people. He wrote that successful people understand their own behaviors, that they understand how their behaviors impact others, they understand their reactions to others, they know how to leverage their strengths, and they know how to adapt their behaviors to the needs of a situation. So, you see, Dr. Guyer, he studied some of the research of Dr. John Marston. And here's a summary of Marston's research. He said, we're all born with our genetic traits, and we interact with our environment, so that by about age 5 or 6, we've established what we call our core personality. And then he said, we continue to interact with our environment through our teenage years and becoming young adults and then adults. And he said, along the way, we develop what he called behavioral tendencies. And you'll see in just a second what DISC stands for, because Dr. Geyer built on Dr. Marston's research to say, okay, 4 sets of behavioral tendencies. So we start with a perception of our environment, and then we choose how we're going to respond to our environment. So we have a stressful perception. We choose to respond assertively. This is when we display dominant or ruler behavioral tendencies. Other situations, not so stressed, choose to respond assertively. This is when we display influencing or entertainer behavioral tendencies. Other situations, yet, we're not so stressed. We choose to respond less assertively. This is when we display steady or relater behavioral tendencies. And then other situations, yet, where we perceive a degree of stress, we choose to respond less assertively. This is when we display cautious or analyzer behavioral tendencies. So you see dominant, influencing, steady, cautious. That's how we come up with DISC. That's how he came up with DISC. And he also said this. He said, every single one of us possesses some degree of all 4 of these behavioral tendencies. He also said, though, that most of us, the overwhelming majority of us, have one of the 4 as our primary behavioral tendency. He did also say that about 10% of us have a strong secondary behavioral tendency. So speaking for myself, the overwhelming number of situations in which I find myself, you see, I tend to respond assertively. So I am considered both a high dominant and high influencing person. My behavioral tendencies are very strongly predisposed towards responding assertively. Okay? So now let's talk about the relationship between vision and strategic leadership. You see, part of what helps any of us develop a vision is to first anticipate, create, and encourage change. You see, what's at the crux of having a vision is you're pondering the question, where do we see ourselves in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years for starters? It's about looking forward. And you see, an important part of looking forward is identifying opportunities for change and growth. This is why we suggest and emphasize that it is important to anticipate, create, and actually encourage change so we continue to grow. And to do this, we have to understand for ourselves first, what is our organization's vision? What's our organization's vision statement? What are our executives' vision for where we see ourselves in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years? And if we're going to lead effectively, we have to buy into those visions. Otherwise, we cannot lead effectively where we work. So it's something to ponder. And once we've bought into our vision statement and our executive's vision, it is time for us to convene a team discussion where we first facilitate everyone buying into our corporate vision statement. Again, if people on our team cannot buy into it, they probably need to be looking for employment somewhere else. Then we talk with our team about change. How and why change helps our organization grow, which I explained a few moments ago, but just to recap, if we don't keep looking forward and looking for ways to create, to innovate, to improve our products and services, to grow our market share, and then perhaps to pursue other newer markets. If we don't do all of that, we're going to die, okay? We'll become stagnant and we will fail, guaranteed. Meanwhile, though, we convey to our team, it's okay for there to be differences in perspectives. In fact, it is these differences where we engage in constructive and respectful debate and discussion that helps promote constructive change. And finally, with our team, we talk with them together to understand this phenomenon of resistance and how to address it. So let me do that with you now. Let's understand a few things. You recall that exercise that we started off today with, where people express what they perceive we have in common and unique life and work experiences that they have had. Well, here's the summary. Each of us has had our own unique set of life and work experiences, and as a result, each of us has developed our own system of values and beliefs. Who we value, what we believe, why we believe it. And so you see, when someone resists you, they are likely, highly likely, doing so, resisting you, because they perceive some threat that you may embody, some threat to some aspect of their system of values and beliefs. These are their truths. These are their values and beliefs, and we are often unwittingly, unknowingly threatening some aspect of their system of values and beliefs. So you see, when someone resists us, that's a call to action to us to ask that person some questions so we can better understand what is behind their resistance. And at the same time, resistance is a natural part of change. If we didn't have differences of opinion, if we didn't have different perspectives, respectful disagreements, we would never grow. We would stay in one place and we would ultimately wither and fail, guaranteed. Because the organizations who don't look to innovate, to advance, are the ones who fail. Resistance is a natural part of change. And resistance is also protection and energy. Now this runs counter to what many of us experience. When someone resists us, it feels like they're pushing against us, doesn't it? When in fact, remember, they perceive we are threatening some aspect of their system, values, and beliefs. Picture that person who is resisting you as actually putting up both their hands in front of their chest to protect themselves, and also that that person is conserving energy for what they perceive is going to be a battle, an argument maybe, a heated discussion where we're both going to express differing points of view, and they clearly may have some charged emotions along with that. So it's a reminder to us, when someone resists us, we need to ask questions to better understand why that person's resisting us, and to understand that that person who's resisting us is actually protecting themselves and conserving energy. All right. So in approaching resistance, we want to take it seriously, keep the lines of communication open, make sure we don't rush the process, beware of the resistance and the reactions within ourselves, ask what we can learn from the resistance. That person may be adding value to the situation. And to seek mutual gain, look for the win-win. There are a number of different typical responses to resistance: overusing power, using force of reason, playing off relationships. Many of these typical responses are not helpful. And there are so many different types of resistance. There are differing kinds of easy agreement or compliance. This is where we've given one set of instructions to everyone on our team, and all but one of our team members is following the proper procedure, the right steps. Let's say this one person on our team is taking and trying to take a lot of shortcuts, which, let's just say, in our industry, is not helpful because it doesn't represent reality. So long story short, we give this same set of instructions to everyone, and one person on our team goes their own way. So we approach that person, and the second we approach them, they say, I'm sorry, I'll do things the right way. The problem is, though, and this is not 100% of the time, it's just an alert that if someone changes, claims that they are going to stop doing things their own way and do things the right way, just keep your eyes and ears open, pay close attention to their nonverbals, because at least 9 times out of 10, the second you turn your back, that person goes right back to doing it how they were doing it before, basically their own way, instead of the way that everyone is expected to do it. So just keep your eyes and ears open. And there are all different types of resistance which are challenging. When dealing with resistance, first of all, look for behavioral clues. Pay close attention to people's nonverbal signals. Next, trust your instincts and visceral responses. We're all 50% head, 50% gut, 50% cerebral intelligence, 50% emotional intelligence. Pay attention to both. If you're concerned about trusting your gut, check your gut against what you're thinking and see where the intersections may exist. Maintain your focus on objectives. My favorite question to ask is, what is our goal here? What is our goal here in this place, right now, in this situation, on this project, on this task? What is our goal here? Also, embrace and give voice to the resistance. You see, when you can repeat back someone's words to them or paraphrase, come close to it, in almost every situation, that will be the first time that that person heard their thoughts expressed by somebody else. And it will more than likely be the first time that they will be given an opportunity to reconsider their position. Think of the possibilities. In other situations, let others respond. Specifically, if someone confronts you publicly in front of others, in front of witnesses, someone once said, especially if those witnesses are that person's peers, give yourself just a little bit of space, because in some situations, their peers are going to speak up and say, John, that sounds like a great idea, but we tried that about 3 months ago and it fell really flat, so we need to try something different. In other words, sometimes that person's peers will do your job for you. And finally, seek themes, metaphors, and new possibilities in the resistance. Remember, one of the possibilities when someone resists you is that they're going to add value and add value to the situation. They may very well have a new, plausible, credible idea that could work. That's important. So to summarize, first of all, recognize resistance always exists. It's neither good nor bad, it just is. Next, catch resistance early and deal with it. The 3 best times to deal with resistance, first and foremost, are as it is happening or simultaneous, immediately after it has happened, or no later than the same day the resistance has occurred. Why? Because the faster the response, the less chance there is for that resistance to spread to others. You see, others are watching you. And any delay on your part to challenge, I say respond to aggressiveness with assertiveness. So any delay on your part to respond assertively to someone who's resisting you allows for more and more time for that resistance virus to spread to other people. Think of it that way. Also, be persistent and patient with resistance. Be persistent in asking questions and be patient with someone as they try to work through something in a way different than how they wanted to initially. Be patient and persistent. Also, pay attention to your instincts and visceral responses, 50% head, 50% gut, and finally, seek mutual gains. Dealing with resistance is not an I win because I'm the manager or leader and you lose because you're not. No, that is not how we do things. We do things in a respectful manner and we look for opportunities for both of us to win. Here's a little tip, and this comes from Conflict Management 101. Whenever two parties are in disagreement, whether it's you and another person or you're trying to resolve a conflict between two other people, the most important first step is to reach as many agreements as you can. We all know where we disagree. However, the more agreements we can reach first, the easier it is to work through any disagreements. That's why we say look for mutual gains. Look for as many areas of agreement as possible. Now let's talk about spotting opportunities for successful strategic alliances. You see, this is about developing effective interpersonal working relationships with executives, fellow managers, fellow leaders, team members, and customers. So in engaging with others, ask questions about what they're trying to accomplish. What are their goals? Listen carefully. Clarify and confirm what they said. What I heard you say is, ... Did I hear you? That should be, did I hear you correctly? Respond thoughtfully. Remember, reach as many agreements as possible. Act accordingly. Let's act in concert. Let's proceed collaboratively. And follow the same process as and when you are trying to get to know others better, because following the same process will help you to develop many effective interpersonal working relationships. Next, let's think about becoming an innovative and visionary leader. Well, what do we know about innovation? We know that innovation is the redeployment of existing resources in a more effective way, and innovation is sparked by creativity. So to foster both innovation and creativity, we should be asking the following questions. How could we do this even better? What does our cost-benefit analysis indicate? And what is our potential return on investment? Also, what do we know about being a visionary leader? Well, think about this. Step back for just a moment and ask yourself, who is the visionary leader, or who are the visionary leaders who I already know and perhaps with whom I am currently working and or have worked with previously? Now that I've identified one or more visionary leaders, what are their qualities and how would I describe them? Next, what do these visionary leaders do particularly well? Write those down and work to emulate them. Next, what excites me about my current and our current corporate vision? You see, this is an important component because this is about developing passion. Because remember, as leaders, we are looking to inspire others. And then next, and we thank Jim Collins from his wonderful work, Good to Great, for this inspiration. What is my big, hairy, audacious goal? What is my stretch goal that is so above and beyond my normal comfort zone capacity? What's my dream? It's pretty close to that. What's just my outrageously extreme goal? And also, though, what do I think our corporate big, hairy, audacious goals should be? That's right. We're talking about thinking way above and beyond. Way above and beyond. So next, let's talk about establishing a strategic culture no matter where we reside in our organization. Remember, our constant focus needs to be on, and our constant focus needs to be assimilating those 4 sets of goals: corporate strategic goals, customer goals, department goals, and individual team member goals. So you see, when we talk about establishing a strategic culture, this is a reminder of the value to us of first identifying as many of these as we can, and then looking to create and support alignments between our organization and our department, between our individual team members and our customers. This is how we establish a strategic culture, because everyone's goals are essentially on the same page. On the same page. Next, we're all familiar with companies conducting what we call a SWOT analysis, where we look closely at our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Meanwhile, though, let's talk about our individual team members and identifying an individual's strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities. So at our firm, we do this in conjunction with our annual performance review. And we conduct what we call an individual team member's SWO analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities. So as someone's manager, both I and that individual, who is one of my direct reports, we both complete a follow-up to the self-evaluation and manager's evaluation by asking these questions and looking for answers. I write down for them, they write down for themselves, what do I do well? I write down for them, they write down for themselves, what could I do even better? Next, they answer, I answer for them as well. Where can I expand my capabilities? They answer that question. And we usually offer a suggestion with some nice pictures from Aruba. Okay. So what do they do well? What could they do better? And where can they expand their capabilities? So what we've done for years, and this works quite well, is to have each of our individual team members assess themselves, a self-evaluation. And of course, we on our own have completed an evaluation, an assessment. And what we do is when we meet with each individual for their annual performance review and develop their performance plan and professional development plan for the next year, is we also compare notes answering these questions: strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities. Okay, so now we're coming back to Tuckman's 5 stages of team development. And to be clear, we're going to focus for our purposes on the first 4 stages: forming, storming, norming, and performing. You see, all effective teams have 8 characteristics. Effective teams have a clear and elevating goal, a results-driven structure, have competent team members. Effective teams also have a unified commitment, participate together in a collaborative climate, and have standards of excellence, often known as best practices. In addition, effective teams receive external support and recognition. So not just us, but we need to make sure that they receive external support and recognition by requesting it advocating for it, etc. And finally, effective teams have principled leadership. So this is a reminder to us to ask ourselves, okay, what are my principles? So now for the stages of team development. During the first stage, the forming stage, our teams are testing out group norms and trying to define the boundaries of their task. Whereas in the second, or storming stage, there's friction, jockeying for position among team members, and this may produce some emotional responses. During the third stage, the norming stage, this represents a time of change in which interdependence develops within the group and members become more willing and able to express their opinions and ideas constructively. And finally, in the performing stage, one of our clients once said, this is when my team is running smoothly on all cylinders. And he said, there's very little I have to do, although stay tuned. We have a slightly different perspective on this. So things are working extremely well in the performing stage. And group members begin to apply their oneness, their togetherness, to the task at hand, developing solutions and making real progress. So you see, when we're in the forming stage, our team members may feel excited, anxious, and dependent. And the issues they're dealing with include testing authority, inclusion, and trust. So what they are looking to us for as leaders is for us to add structure, encourage learning, and encourage participation. When our team is in the storming stage, our team members may feel incompetent, confused, frustrated, maybe even negative. And the issues they're dealing with include power struggles, control, conflict. So we as leaders can help by encouraging conversation, helping with decision-making, and providing support. During the norming stage, our team members may feel open to constructive feedback, accepted by the team, and comfortable. The issues they're dealing with include the productivity of our team, sharing responsibility, and building confidence. So we as leaders can actually help by backing off, expressing our own ideas, and then challenging our team. And finally, in that wonderful, sometimes blissful state of the performing stage, this is where team members may feel appreciative of each other's strengths, more accepting of each other's weaknesses. They may feel satisfied with their progress on the task, confident in their abilities as a team, and optimistic. And the issues they're dealing with include accomplishing goals and maintaining momentum. So you see, one of the key concerns we have to have when our team is performing this well is complacency. So we as leaders can help by suggesting new goals, reviewing people's performance, and conducting ongoing assessments, challenging our people to go above and beyond, to do things even better, faster, smarter, whatever it might be. So now we want to talk about taking risks with confidence, given our understanding of these 4 stages of teams. You see, we as managers and as leaders, when we're looking to lead, remember, we are on stage 24/7 practically, both in our words and our actions and our emails and every one of our words and actions. So we set the standard for everyone else, and we have to be accountable ourselves to be a role model, which we hope inspires others to be accountable. You see, we as managers have to do what we are asking others to do, and the same for us as leaders. We are the example. We have to set clear expectations, and we have to be consistent. You see, when we talk about taking risks with confidence, we are talking about the principles of risk management. And the 2 key objectives of risk management include increasing the likelihood and impact of positive events and decreasing the likelihood and impact of negative events. And I encourage you, make a note of slide 42, and as soon as we finish today's webinar, I encourage you to return to this slide and just review, because what we have listed here are the 7 components of risk management with definitions and descriptions. We talk about planning risk management, identifying risks, performing both qualitative and quantitative risk analysis, planning and implementing our risk responses, and then monitoring our risks, consistent with the principles of project management. You see, when we're solving problems, pardon me, as I mentioned before, look in the lower right-hand corner, because the first step in solving any problem is gaining a shared understanding of the current state, that's the status quo, which is part of what we do as managers, and understanding what our desired outcome is. This is when we engage people as leaders. We both manage and lead. We strategize, we brainstorm, maybe we come up with 3 possibilities for solving a problem. We have to choose one. We make our choice. Which solution approach are we going to take? We have to develop action plans and then implement those action plans. Let's say, however, that we're unsuccessful on the first try. When we implemented, we executed steps, we checked our results, we fell short. We have to go back to when we were strategizing, brainstorming, and say, okay, we made one choice before, that didn't work. We have 2 other solution approaches that we identified earlier. Which of those 2 solution approaches do we want to follow? We make a choice, we update our action plans, we implement our action plans. Let's say on the second try, we are successful. So we can move on to the next problem. You see, in managing human performance, it's important to understand that human performance is a function of 3 factors. The first is the individual themselves. What do they know? What skills, abilities, and personal characteristics do they possess? The second component of human performance is content. How well does the individual manage data, understand concepts and principles, utilize applications, apps, and understand clearly and focus on what are our, I'll use a project here, what are our project goals? And finally, the third component of human performance is context. And this is where we understand how effectively does the individual utilize the resources that we provide so they can do their job well, to the best level possible. How well does the individual respond to rewards and punishments? And how clearly does the individual understand specifically what is expected of them and then deliver on those expectations? You see, in our personal interactions, I'll use coaching as an example here. We have to prepare, conduct, and follow up. We have to prepare the person we're coaching, prepare ourselves, prepare the context. Let's say we're meeting with an individual to help them improve their performance when it comes to selling to people in person as opposed to over the phone. So we conduct the coaching session. We frame it. We're meeting to help you sell more effectively in person. We execute the task along with some coaching. We develop action plans and a schedule, and then we close the conversation positively. And then, of course, after the coaching session, we follow up. We evaluate. We both evaluate. How do you think it went? How do I think it went? We disseminate information. It often is confidential just between the 2 of us. In some cases, it may be appropriate to copy human resources, but I would encourage you to keep as much, if not all, of the communication between you and the person you're coaching. And finally, we check our results. We agree just before we finish our coaching session that we're going to meet a month from now, 30 days from now, to review the individual's progress with selling effectively to people in person. So now we want to start focusing on the benefits of focusing on strategy. You see, our strategic plan is a written document. It's the recipe to achieve our vision and mission. It's a step-by-step guide to help us reach our goals. It contains 4 elements: goals, objectives, measures, and timelines. It includes the parties accountable for accomplishing tasks, and it's usually expressed in 1, 2, and 3-year time periods, although possibly longer. In fact, preferably longer. What is the value provided in the strategic planning process, in using and monitoring the strategic plan, and what is the value of the strategic plan itself for our leadership team? First, when it comes to the process itself, you see, participating in the strategic planning process provides us with an opportunity to discuss and articulate our vision and mission. It does require that we examine our values, our current status, and our environment. Participating in the strategic planning process helps us all develop a common vocabulary. It empowers us to feel in control of our future, and it is proactive and certainly not reactive. It's all about looking forward. What is the value of using and monitoring a strategic plan? Well, doing so ensures that we are on a path towards fulfilling our vision and mission, gives meaning and direction to day-to-day activities for employees and staff. That is absolutely critical. One of the best ways we can be an effective strategic leader is to help each of our individual team members understand how the work that they do every day contributes to achieving not just our department goals, but our organizational goals. Using and monitoring a strategic plan establishes a value-based means of tracking. It increases the likelihood that our organization will achieve our goals. Using and monitoring a strategic plan builds a shared vision for all stakeholders, and it garners broad-based support. Next, what is the value of a strategic plan for our leadership team? Well, it focuses our work, makes for an efficient allocation of time and resources, makes for better decision-making. It is a tool for evaluating, especially evaluating our progress and success as an organization, as it is for the individual leaders who volunteered to take on part of the implementation. A strategic plan provides a leadership team with continuity and survival, consensus, ownership. It is an improvement plan for both the organization and the executives and leaders. And finally, it engenders financial support. When a CFO is approached asking, and we ask that individual to help fund a project, the first question the CFO always asks is, okay, where's the organization's strategic plan, and where is the at least one organization strategic goal that completing this project that you brought to me for funding is going to help support us achieving? There has to be a connection between the goal of a project with at least one goal within the organization. Of course, the strategic planning process itself involves an environmental inventory or SWOT analysis and formulating and implementing strategy. And I apologize, I know this is a small slide. However, I wanted to get all 7 phases of the strategic planning process on one slide. So we get ready. We articulate our mission, vision, and values. We assess our situation, then we agree on priorities. So we've completed the strategic planning retreat. Now, your facilitator, your consultant, that's often our firm, will write the strategic plan after we've facilitated the retreat, and then it's everyone's job to help implement the strategic plan, and then, of course, to evaluate and monitor our progress with carefully measured milestones along the way each year. The path to strategic planning starts at the top, where we gather data. Then we clarify and confirm our values, our mission, and vision. We set goals. We plan, we develop action plans. And then, of course, we monitor and evaluate those action plans as we implement them. And we facilitate and support accountability. I mentioned a moment ago that we both form and implement strategy. So when we're forming strategy, we clarify and confirm, our vision statement and mission statement. Our external and internal environments, that's our SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we develop long-term goals. Once we've developed our long-term goals in our strategic plan, now it's time to implement our strategic plan. And this is where our annual goals, our strategies, and our policies, institutionalization, and control and evaluation all come into play. You see our SWOT analysis, internal, strengths and weaknesses, external, opportunities and threats. And in conducting our SWOT analysis, we want to think in terms of our competition, our customers, political influences, environments, economic conditions, social impacts, and technological advancements. And I apologize, I know the background on some of these is rather dark, but what is contained here, this is all on one page, one slide, one white space. First, we list our corporate vision and mission statements, and then for each of those 4 boxes, this is where we list our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So our SWOT analysis grid, 1 page, vision statement, mission statement, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So in formulating strategy, we examine our vision and mission statements. We identify our functional areas. Each functional area or department has no more than 3 goals, and we also articulate our long-term goals. We make sure we have a manageable number of goals. I vigorously encourage you to make your primary goals no more than 3. That will keep you focused. And of course, we also start thinking about 5 to 10 year time periods above and beyond this year. At least go to 1, 2, and 3 years, and hopefully further out. When we set goals, we make sure our goals are understandable, acceptable, flexible, measurable, inspirational, suitable, achievable, and smart. Then when we are implementing strategy, we have to understand what are our annual goals, what are the strategies we're going to pursue to achieve our annual goals, who is responsible for carrying out each of these different strategies that are designed to help us achieve our annual goals, and then how are we going to monitor our progress? Do we perhaps have monthly or quarterly milestones? And then how and when are we going to communicate, to meet with each other, maybe by phone or in person or a combination? How frequently are we going to meet to regularly do report outs of our progress towards achieving each and every one of our strategic goals? And the strategic plan table illustrates the relationship between our each of our long-term goals, the annual goals that we've established to help support achieving our long-term goals, the strategies we will follow this year to achieve our annual objectives, and then status and schedule refers to, pardon me, communication with each other, regular meetings and phone calls, and then what is our series of monthly and quarterly milestones that will help us do a monthly and or quarterly check-in to see how are we progressing towards our annual goals. Of course, we're all committed to continuous improvement, so we should be sharing the strategic plan, commit to using our strategic plan, revisit it, monitor it, evaluate its effectiveness and our effectiveness, and of course, celebrate our accomplishments along the way. It's a good way to build and establish momentum. What are some of the different ways in which vision can be used? Well, we want to share with everyone, especially our direct reports, how our corporate vision statement applies to our strategic plan, to best practices, to key projects and assignments, to team action plans, and to individual action plans. Remember, we engaged in this exercise at the beginning, understanding what we have in common and how each of us is unique. Well, this speaks, remember, to each of us having our own individual system of values and beliefs. What are our corporate values and beliefs? I share with you, and I encourage you to revisit this after today's webinar, a sample of a corporate vision statement and mission statement. And now we talk about the relationship between strategy, objectives, metrics, and performance. You see, strategy, annual objectives, and metrics should be posted publicly, posted on each and every project plan, and incorporated into every performance plan and performance review. When it comes to performance, all performance plans and performance reviews should be targeted towards connecting each and every corporate objective or corporate goal with individual performance objectives. Again, helping each of our individual direct reports understand how the work I do every day connects with the bigger picture, with achieving department and, more importantly, organizational goals. And then metrics should be clearly identified for each individual in their performance plan and review. This is how we integrate strategy, objectives, metrics, and performance. So should we use action plans to implement strategy or a looser system? Pardon me for expediting this, but all I'm going to say is this, and I'm always open to suggestions. In almost every example I can think of, whether it's SWOT analysis, customers, sales, leadership, business processes, any of these, a concrete systematic action plan. I will go out on a limb and say 98 to 99% of the time is more effective. I was asked recently if I could ever think of an example of where a looser system could support achieving goals, and I can think of one example, and this is over 26 years of consulting, fine, and it involved human resources. And in short, in one organization, they had a looser system where, because they were present in 26 different countries, they asked each and every one of their human resources professionals to be familiar with the human resource laws in all 26 countries where they operated. That, to me, is a very, very loose system. And I will say, to their credit, it actually worked quite well. I didn't think it would, but it did. Okay. We understand SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. When it comes to best practices, start with these. Ask yourself and ask your colleagues, what are our best practices when it comes to managing change, communication, customer relationship management, technology, operations, project management, and sales? So to summarize, a strategic plan is a written document. There's value in the plan itself, in developing it, and in monitoring it. A strategic plan guides board action if you have a board of directors, and of course it's proactive because it looks forward. We've addressed a great deal of content today, and I want to thank you. I've done a lot of talking, and now I'm looking forward to your questions. We've helped you to inspire and direct your team to greater readiness and competitiveness, add value to your organization by understanding the needs of your customers, to help you anticipate, create, and encourage change, to spot opportunities for successful strategic alliances, help you become a more innovative and visionary leader, to establish a strategic culture no matter where you reside in your organization, to identify the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities in each of your individual team members, keep your team moving forward and take risks with confidence. Also, help you identify the benefits of focusing on strategy, understanding the different ways in which vision can be used in your organization, to integrate those 4 factors of strategy, objectives, metrics, and performance, understand some of the new strategic patterns that are evolving in the business world, and help you develop some ideas for their application where you work in your organization, and to discover, as I said, our experience probably 98 to 99% of the time when an action plan will be more helpful to implementing strategy than a looser system.